So
Okay.
do you, do you want my email address?
Yes, please.
It's well, let's use my business one. REUBEN
Yep.
at ignitedlivinggroup.com.
United Living. That's a great email. Okay, perfect. I'll send that out to you as well. And today I will send you guys out because I just gave this information to Bill to add to the portal. So we're going to be talking about sound therapy and the vagus nerve today. Let me just make sure no one's trying to be admitted. I feel like I missed some people last week because it doesn't pop up all the time. So I have to move around. Okay. So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body. It originates in the brain and travels all the way down to the lower internal organs. You guys don't have to take a ton of notes. Like I said, I will email all of this information out to you and it will be added into the portal as well. So it is a fundamental regulator of the parasympathetic nervous system, which controls all the involuntary processes of the body, such as digestion, heartbeat, respirations, etc. And we're talking about the vagus nerve, and you guys will understand why in just a minute. But right now, we're going to talk about what is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is also responsible for restoring relaxation after a response to stress or danger. So that fight or flight, that sympathetic nervous system activation. The strength of the vagus response is called vagal tone. Vagal tone is determined by the variation in the heart rate that can be measured between inhalation and exhalation. During the inhalation, the heart speeds up, and during the exhalation, it slows down. So the bigger the difference between these two phases, the higher the vagal tone. A high vagal tone is what we need in order to maintain a state of good health. So we actually want a higher number between those two. So again, during the inhalation, the heart speeds up. During the exhalation, it slows down. And the bigger the difference between these two phases, the higher the vagal tone. And that is what we need in order to maintain a state of good health. So what is the relevance of the vagus nerve in sound-based therapies? The ear and hearing have a substantial effect on the rest of the body because of their proximity to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, which is also the 10th cranial nerve, does not play an active part in the process of hearing. Therefore, it's not normally taken into big consideration in things that relate to music or hearing outside of the medical field. However, this incredibly important nerve is connected with the posterior wall of the external auditory canal, which is the lower part of the eardrum's membrane, and in the middle ear, in the stapedius, which is the stirrup muscle of the ear. From these parts of the ear, the sound makes its way all the way down to the lower internal organs. I'm sorry, the vagus nerve makes its way all the way down to the lower internal organs and is responsible for a high number of regulatory functions in the pharynx, the larynx, the thorax, and the abdomen. So this 10th cranial nerve is responsible for quite a bit. So basically, stimulating the ear means stimulating all the vital vegetative internal organs. This makes the ear a parasympathetic regulator organ that uses innervation of the vagus nerve to affect the whole body. So by playing sound and vibration into the ear, we're affecting this external auditory canal and this stirrup muscle, which connect into this vagus nerve, which sends that vibrates those regulatory functions all the way down through the body. So the ear is a parasympathetic regulatory organ that uses innervation of the vagus nerve to affect the whole body. So the vibrations of sound tend to have a very significant impact on all of the areas of the body reached by this nerve by resonating very close to it in the eardrum. So when we hold up tuning forks on either side of the head, we are really putting that vibration. And that's why we do that. When I teach tuning fork protocols, everybody says, why do we use everything else over the body? But we do protocols next to the ears. And we're doing the protocols next to the ears to stimulate this vagus nerve. So the vibrations of sound tend to have a very significant impact on all the areas of the body reached by this nerve by resonating very close to it in the eardrums. In addition to that, the majority of cranial nerves are either directly or indirectly connected with the ear. So this is one of the reasons why the use of sound therapy instruments such as crystal singing bowls, tuning forks, and Himalayan singing bowls can be so instantly calming and relaxing. So, this helps the body to come back to the nourishing state that is the opposite of that fight or flight state. So most of us are walking around sometimes in that fight or flight state, but we don't even know it. We're not aware. And we're maybe not in that super fight or flight, but we're in that stress response. And until we learn how to take a deep breath and open up our diaphragms and relax our shoulders and kind of be here in the moment, we sometimes don't even realize. I feel like I walked around in that state for a long time until I was finally aware of it and made a choice to kind of not walk around that way. So by doing all of the things that we're doing, the tuning forks and the sound healing and all of the meditations and all the things we're doing, but especially the sound, and especially the sound that we're playing right here next to the ears is really affecting that fight or flight response within our bodies. It has a way of really regulating and calming that down very quickly. Again, this is one of the reasons why the use of sound therapy instruments such as crystal singing bowls, tuning forks, and Himalayan singing bowls can be so instantly calming and relaxing. This helps the body to come back to the nourishing state that is the opposite of fight or flight mode triggered by stress. In fact, long and sustained sounds tend to be soothing and relaxing, parasympathetic response, whereas sharp and abrupt sounds tend to trigger alertness and alarm, which triggers that sympathetic response. Another interesting factor is that auditory stimulation of the vagus nerve can lead to reduced activity of the limbic system. So the limbic system is located on both sides of the thymus, and the thymus is the information relay center of the brain. So the limbic system is located on both sides of the thymus. Again, this is the information relay center of the brain. This includes the hypothalamus, which has a major role in learning and memory. And it also involves the amygdala, which is the process where we process fearful and threatening stimuli. And this limbic system also includes a number of other nearby areas. So the auditory stimulation of the vagus nerve can lead to reduced activity of the limbic system. So it can lead to reduced activity of that information relay center of the brain. It includes the hypothalamus, which is responsible for keeping our body in homeostasis. The hippocampus, which is responsible for keeping our body in homeostasis. Oh, I'm sorry, hang on. Let me start this again because I printed this out and I actually printed it like in this weird way. So the auditory stimulation of the vagus nerve can lead to reduced activity of the limbic system. The limbic system is located on both sides of the thymus, again, information relay center of the brain. It also includes the hypothalamus, which is responsible for keeping your body in homeostasis. The hippocampus, which has a major role in learning and memory, and the amygdala, which processes fearful and threatening stimuli. And this auditory stimulation can also reduce activity in a number of other nearby areas. So it really helps to calm the brain down. It really helps to smooth everything out. And it really helps to help us process fearful and threatening stimuli. So if you have someone that's in that trauma state, if you have someone that is really keyed up, that seems like their nervous system is really out of whack, play some very healing tones, tuning forks. You could do 432 and 528, say, tuning forks on each side of the head. and it can really stimulate that vagus nerve to really calm down all those centers of the brain. And then it also affects all of these vegetative organs within the body. And it also is affecting the system that keeps us in homeostasis. So it's really calming down and soothing and really helping to keep all of those systems in balance. So if you think about it, this vagus nerve is basically responsible for all of the normal calm functions of everything that's going on within our body, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So, think about in a sound bath, you don't have to just be playing these tuning forks and things on each side of the brain. So on each side of the head. By laying in a sound bath, you are taking in these vibrations on each side of your head from all sides of the room. Everything is coming into you and at you. You're also taking in these sounds through your skin and through your bones and through your organs. So everything is being regulated in that way. But I also want you to think about that when you do private sessions, if you guys do tuning forks, really pay attention to, you want to make sure that you're using some calming and soothing tones here. And you want to make sure that you understand what frequencies you're using here and why. And also make sure that you're taking your time. When I teach tuning forks, you do three rounds on each side, then you switch up the tuning forks and you do those two forks again, just on the opposite sides. And it balances out each side, but you're also doing that because we just want to take our time and get that vibration in there. If you think about, brainwaves, if you have somebody that has all these scattered brainwaves, to get everything to calm down, it takes more than just a second of music being played in there, right? It takes a couple of minutes to synchronize and to really entrain and to really match up with those vibrations. So we want to make sure that we're keeping those tuning forks besides the ears for a long enough time to really make sure that those vibrations are getting in there and that everything is getting nice and synced up. So you want to hold those tuning forks until you don't feel the stems of those forks vibrating anymore. Then you want to shake them off and re-vibrate them and put them up there. And so it seems like, boy, this is taking a long time. And I've been holding these tuning forks here for minutes, but you want to make sure that you're getting those signals in there and that everything is being sent and received. And, it takes a minute sometimes to turn the tide of that fight or flight symptoms. And, in the world that we're living in right now, I don't know about you guys, if you guys are dealing with private clients or group clients, but a lot of my clients are very afraid about what's going on in the world. We're starting to lose our freedoms and things are starting to shift. And for a lot of my clients, they're feeling very unbalanced and they're feeling very disconnected from the earth and from wanting to be here. And I think whatever we can do to help make that a little bit easier for people, to help them process through things. I feel like we are never coming from a rational place of thinking when we're in that fight or flight mode, right? We're nervous and we're just wanting to, either fix it or move away from the situation. So I think if we can help people return to a state of just a little bit more calm and maybe approaching a situation from a more calm state instead of that fight or flight state, we can help people make decisions from a better point. Because when we're in that fearful mode, sometimes we're not always thinking from our most rational mind and from that center, that core center, our own true frequency. When we're in that fight or flight, or when we're in a trauma space, or when we're in our frequency is changing a little bit and it's not our true frequency, and we don't always want to make decisions from there. So let's see, a simple practice of toning also. So producing long vocal sounds, usually say the vowel sounds of the chakras, the bija mantras, or humming, can have a tangible calming effect on the vagus nerve, which in turn causes that limbic system deactivation. So this is very similar to certain therapies that use electrical devices to stimulate the vagus nerve artificially. So with your own voice, you can do the same stimulation as you can with an electrical device. With tuning forks, you can do the same as they are doing with electrical devices. So people don't need this electrical stimuli. They are able to, we are able to affect this vagus nerve and in turn the rest of the body simply by vocal toning or chanting the vowel sounds. And in the chakra sections, I give you the vowel sounds and the Bija mantras that you could tone. And you could tone this, but you could also get your clients to start toning these things while they're in your sessions. If you're doing one-on-one sessions, in ecstatic dance, I kind of love this about it. When we're in the middle of a dance, we're generally working up through the chakras. And so in each section, we stop and we actually tone while you're dancing. We tone all of the vowel sounds, and it really does help to connect into those chakras, the vibration. You can kind of feel that vibration down into the chakras. And so, having your client visualize that and toning while they're with you is not just helping them focus their energy, as we're learning today, it's also helping to stimulate that vagus nerve, which is helping with all of that, all of that regulation and homeostasis within the body. So, the vagus nerve, the longest nerve in the body, originates in the brain, travels all the way down to the lower internal organs. Again, it's a fundamental regulator of the parasympathetic nervous system, which controls all of the involuntary processes of the body, such as digestion, heartbeat, respirations, etc. The vagus nerve is also responsible for restoring relaxation after a response to stress or danger. So, knowing all of this information, I hope that when you're doing a sound session, even a group sound session, that maybe you're looking at the body in a different way and thinking about, also think about, we don't want to blast the ears out. We just did a training in Houston this weekend, and it's always fun to be reminded of certain things. Sometimes I forget when you get in the habit of just doing a job over and over again, you kind of forget what it feels like to be a receiver of that, and maybe some of the things that you need to be aware of. It happens in body waxing. It's always nice to, get a facial and feel how painful extractions feel, to remember that the people laying on your table are human and they have feelings in their face still. So the same is true for sound. So when we're doing private sessions, we teach this section where we teach you guys drumming over the body. And Alex, you will experience this glorious practice this weekend. And so when you get up towards the head, you want to vibrate sound in, but you don't want to just be boom, boom, a drum over someone's face, because their ears are right there. So just remember that when you are thinking, I'd really like to work on this vagus tone for someone, maybe I'll do some tuning forks. Always make sure that when you put anything up to anyone's ears, that it's comfortable for them, that you're not blowing their eardrums out. Because also keep in mind, when someone's not feeling good, sounds tend to be louder. So a lot of the times when we're not feeling good, we tend to I don't want a super loud sound bath, or I don't want super loud sounds. So that's something just to remember in general. If someone's coming into a sound bath and they're feeling really cruddy, really start that sound bath out nice and quiet, because when we're not feeling good, we just can't take it in as much. So always remember that when you're sticking tuning forks or anything up to someone's ears, if they're in a state of really not feeling that great, you do want to start out kind of slow and then work into that. And then as they start to feel better after they see you and you work your magic on them, and you play these amazing things that we know work, and continue to work and work and work, then maybe you can increase that sound, and maybe even add in more instruments. When you first start out with someone who's not feeling good, you might not even be able to do that much. You might just be able to do crystal bowls, say, around the body, and then you work into other things. So always remember that you want to meet your clients where they're at. But if they do have this fight or flight syndrome or symptoms, or they're, really keyed up, or they have something going on, or they seem like they're just, right now I'm using a lot of tuning forks in my practice to really help people kind of regulate from what's going on in the world right now. It's feeling very overwhelming to people. So in my sessions, I'm using tuning forks a lot to really help bring people back and just bring them back into the present moment, bring them back into their body, and remember that, we can only do what we can do. But if we have the intention to go out there and help to make the world a better place, then we're doing everything we can in that moment. So, that's all we can do. So that's the vagus nerve. Does anybody have any, I don't know, anything they want to talk about with the vagus nerve? Has anybody noticed anything with using tuning forks or sound or, anything like that?
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And really fast. I did not realize how all encompassing the vagus nerve was.
Yeah, I didn't either until I really started doing some research on it. And it's amazing how this little nerve affects a lot of things.
Yeah. And I do know that deep breathing, definitely will get the diaphragm going in a way that relaxes or that activates the vagus nerve. But I always thought of it as okay, it's there at the diaphragm. Didn't realize it kind of moves all throughout the entire body and the internal organs that way.
Yeah, and it's neat that you can affect it with the ears, but it's not involved in hearing. I think that's
right,
actually really cool too.
Right. Yeah, there is a connection there, but not direct.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Ruben, have you taken level 2 in person? Have you come and taken level 2?
August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are we going to see you at?
Asheville.
Excellent. I love it. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I live about an hour from Asheville. So.
Oh, sweet. Asheville's one of my favorite places. So I'm very happy to be spending a couple of weekends there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. Well, you're going to be learning all sorts of tuning fork things if you don't know tuning fork things now, which will help. We do some protocols where we do some stuff right next to the ears. So we'll be going through this vagus nerve stimulation. And Alex is going to be joining us this coming weekend in Clearwater to experience it. So perfect.
So talk about tuning forks, just like now, I'm sure you're gonna cover more when I'm there on the weekend, but just like now, how do you know which one to apply, and how many tuning forks do you usually use in the session, or it's based on the client needs?
For sure. It's kind of based on what your client needs. I will say for my practice, so I'm incorporating sound into my facials, which, during the day, I don't know what everybody has coming in the door. I know that most people come in, they're hectic. They've just been running around in their day. And I do know that people are feeling kind of disconnected. So for me, I just choose a couple of frequencies that I want to work with and I want to see if I can figure out. So right now, I just ordered a set. It's like a couple of months ago. There's a great guy who talks about sound healing and the chakras. Jonathan Goldman is his name, and him and his wife write books, and they've written, I think Jonathan Goldman came out with an album of music that balances each chakra. But anyway, he comes out with tuning fork sets, and he believes he puts two frequencies together that he thinks works really well together. So right now I am trying out 432 and 528. So 432 is kind of that heart opening frequency, and 528 is that miracle healing tone. And he believes that this is the perfect sounding tone. So I will just look up tuning forks, and I buy maybe 2 tuning forks that come together as a set that I'm told sound good together, so that I can just try them out on my clients. So also 136.1, I have 1 weighted tuning fork and 1 unweighted, because that tuning fork, that frequency is good for relieving stress, relieving muscle spasms, helping with anxiety. It's great for migraines and headaches. So it's a very universal tuning fork. So I like to work with the same tuning fork for months and months and months and months and months, because I feel like you have to get a feel for how they sound, and you have to get a feel for how they sound when they maybe encounter anger or stress or anxiety, and they do change depending on what the client is feeling. And I feel like for me, it just takes me a while to really hear the changes in that. Now, with that being said, I think I might be having a problem with my ears, and I maybe, it's all kind of culminating together with, I have extreme motion sickness now that I never had before. So when I fly, I now have to take medication, but I also do feel like that has also led me to understand that I maybe am not hearing my tuning forks as much as other people are hearing them, because I do have people say to me, oh, do you hear that? And I'm not always hearing that. So I'm actually getting my ears checked out next week to make sure that I'm hearing things the way that I should be hearing them. Because the motion sickness is weird, but also the hearing things. And maybe I'm listening more now than I need to listen more now than I used to. But so I think it's basically just when we do training, we're going to use the harmonic spectrum set, which is it's the set that aligns with all of the chakras. And it also gives that soul star chakra. So that 512 hertz is also included in that set because we work with that chakra as well. But so basically what I would do in a session, if those are the only forks I had, I would do harmonizing notes. So we know in a sound bath, every other crystal bowl harmonizes, right? So every other tuning fork in that set should harmonize as well. So if I'm not sure, maybe what my client needs in this moment, I might do even the root and the heart, because even though they're not every other note, they're that rule of fourths and fifths in music. So the root and the heart is that fourth and fifth, kind of. So sometimes I really love that root and heart note together. So sometimes I would just do maybe even those two on the side of the head, just to calm, because as we learned, just really soothing vibration into that vagus nerve helps to really deactivate some things and really just, helps with those involuntary organs and all of those things going on within the brain. So C and D, you could do the root and the solar, you could do the solar and the throat. I think, I don't think it matters. It's like the Himalayan bowls, right? I don't know that it necessarily matters 100% which two forks you go to, as long as they sound harmonizing together. I don't think that you'd want anything too abrupt or piercing. You want something that is more, sounds more soothing, more harmonious together to calm. Now, if you're trying to stimulate in some way, then you would maybe that's when we bring in those disruptors and things, but you wouldn't really want to do that, I don't think, too much on the side of the head. That being said, though, when we go through tuning fork protocols, John Bolio, who writes this book called Human Tuning, he is one of the forefathers of, I believe that he's the gentleman that he sat in like this deprivation tank so that he could hear his nervous system. And so he sat every day in this tank with no sound, no whatever, until he felt like he could hear his nervous system. And then every day he would go back with different tuning forks and he would chime them and he would listen to how they affected his nervous system. And he wrote all of these protocols on which tuning forks you should use together to maybe increase motivation, or to help with sleep, or to help with digestion, or to help with all of these different things. And so he gives you these certain combinations of use C and G together, then switch out the G and use C and A together. And you always have that root fork as your base. And then you build all these other tuning forks off of it. And I teach that when we do tuning forks. But so he teaches you certain protocols. And in some of those protocols, there are some frequencies that aren't super harmonious together, but you're using them in conjunction with harmony. So it's kind of a different system. But if you were just choosing two forks, I would go online and buy a set that says, oh, these sound amazing together, or choose two forks out of your set that just sound nice together. And, you're hitting, because again, as we've learned, it's all connected, right? So if you affect the root and the heart, you're going to affect 3 chakras up and 3 chakras down, which means you're affecting the whole system. So, it's all connected. These are just different ways to get the job done. I think that's the biggest lesson out of teaching this every week, and really all of these little components. If you guys have taken the mindfulness course, you can see this especially, but sound healing is a component of mindfulness, which we know. And mindfulness and all of these different practices and all of this all comes together, and it all forms this big ball of, if you affect one system, you affect everything, you affect change. So try not to get too hung up in the specifics, but I think to play harmony beside the ears is probably going to be your best bet for affecting that system. So, and don't forget that it doesn't have to be just tuning forks right here. You could put 2 Himalayan bowls on each side of the table and chime them if you have 2 that sound really nice. If you don't have tuning forks, you could do, you know, 2 crystal singing bowls right here that sound really nice. Just don't blast them out with those crystal singing bowls. So it doesn't have to be tuning forks. It can be whatever you have. And it can also be your voice, your humming, your toning, your, you know, the vocal toning, the chanting, the humming also affects your vagus nerve. So you could give your clients, you know, you could have them start doing that. If you're doing a one-on-one session, they could start humming or toning or chanting to affect their own vagus nerve if you don't have anything available. So you don't have to go out and buy all these special things if you don't have them. There are things that you can use that you probably have with you. That being said, you're going to want to go out and buy tuning forks. If I have anything to say about it, you're going to want to go out and buy tuning forks. And, you know, you're going to want to buy all these things, but it's not always necessary when you're starting out. So find creative ways, right? So if you have 2 bells in your house or 2 chimes in your house that sound good together, use them. Why not? Just don't blast the eardrums out. That's all I'm asking. Don't hurt your clients with your cool sounds, with your soothing sounds. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, perfect.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
What happens to people that know, if your client now wears those hearing devices?
I would probably have them take their hearing devices out. I find that most people want to do that anyway. Somebody asked me this weekend, and Bill and I kind of debated this for a little while. If someone can't hear, are they still taking in the benefits of, say, the tuning forks? And I think it depends on why they can't hear, because there's lots of reasons why. Sometimes it's that there's no connection to the brain, but sometimes there's been damage to the eardrum. So it depends on why they're not hearing. But even if someone can't hear, those bones and things are still vibrating from the vibration that's getting in there. It's the hairs, it's the bones. So it would stand to reason that even someone who has hearing aids, even though they're maybe not hearing as strong, all of those internal auditory things are being stimulated by the vibration. So I believe that we are still stimulating that vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve isn't incorporated in hearing, right? We're stimulating it through the ears, but it has nothing to do with hearing. It has to do with vibrating those nerves in that stirrup muscle, which then affects that vagus nerve by proximity. It's not because the vagus nerve is attached into our ears. We vibrate and affect that vagus nerve through vibration of the components of the ear in proximity to that vagus nerve. So I think that you can still affect that vagus nerve even if someone doesn't hear that great. But I would have them take their hearing devices out, because most of the time the hearing devices are like a microphone, right? So think about when you try to do sound healing over Zoom. Sometimes even when you turn that background filter off, it still wants to cut out. I would imagine that hearing aids, because sometimes when you get close, they go wee, and they really like, I would imagine that like hearing devices are probably going to do the same thing. It's going to want to filter out things that you don't want to filter out. And again, it's not about the hearing, it's about the vibration. And I would also think that the hearing devices would maybe get in the way of that. So just have them take them out if they're comfortable with that, if they can. Some people can't, some people it's complicated. So maybe I wouldn't even do tuning forks next to them. I would just get the vibration in other ways. So
Great, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. It's always, you know, but everybody's different, right? So I think we always have these things where we go, oh, it should be this way. But then you meet someone and you go, and it's not that way at all. Okay, now I have to find a different way, a different way to approach this and look at it. So that would be what I would say. But again, somebody coming into my trivia room would probably have something completely different going on. And I would have to go, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? How am I going to approach this now? So hopefully we're giving you guys tools and things that you can then go, okay, well, I could do this instead. Or, you know, sometimes it's all about thinking on your feet. That's what I've learned anyway. That's what the spa industry is all about. So sound healing shouldn't be any different. Okay, Nick, you have any questions?
Nope, just listening.
Okay, okay, perfect. All right, how about you, Ruben, Alex, any other questions?
I guess one thing I'm curious about the 432 and 528 hertz frequencies. What notes do those correspond to, or is there a note that they correspond to?
I actually think they're solfeggio frequencies, if I'm remembering
What does that
correctly.
mean?
So solfeggio frequencies are just another scale of let me, I'll send you, let me see if I have something that's in the portal. If you go into the portal, I believe it's level, they were in level 2, I think. It was the chakra section. When I do a deeper dive into the chakras, I talk all about the solfeggio frequencies in there, and they're basically like ancient frequencies, and there's a whole set of them. I believe that originally there were 7, now maybe there's 9 or 13 they've added to them, but they believe that these frequencies affect different things within the body, and it's just a different system of looking at frequency. So we have the harmonic spectrum set, which matches up to the chakras. You have the solfeggio frequencies, which they say, let me see if I can find this really quickly. I'm sorry.
So the frequency doesn't match up to a note, you're saying?
I don't think so. So solfeggio frequencies are,
Okay.
so back in the 11th century, a Benedictine monk named Guido d'Arezzo introduced a musical scale we now know as the solfeggio frequencies. So the monks used these original 6 notes in their Gregorian chants. And those consisted of 396, 417, 528, 639, 741, and 852 hertz. And then over time, they added 174 hertz. And basically, they say that the solfeggio scale was simply abandoned for a new scale by the 16th century. And it is mathematically consistent with the patterns of our universe and has been shown to have significant healing abilities, such as repairing emotional trauma, opening up spiritual consciousness, deepening our relationships, and even altering DNA. So this ancient scale has far-reaching potential. The solfeggio scale has the ability to influence and transform well-being. It can help reduce emotional and physical ills and create a deeper spiritual connection with the universe. So when you play sounds at the solfeggio frequencies, you can bring your chakras back into resonance with their natural state. You can enhance the effects of these frequencies by incorporating mantras or affirmations. And so they actually do correspond with the chakras. So 396 actually corresponds with the root chakra. The 417 actually corresponds with the sacral chakra. The solar plexus vibrates at 528. The heart chakra is 639. The throat chakra is 741. The third eye is 852. The crown is 963. And if you look in, it might be in level 3 now. It's healing the chakras with sound is the name of the, in the portal is the name of the section in there. And I list in there what each of those frequencies is responsible for. So like 396 hertz is designed to dissolve negative thinking, negative emotions, and destructive behavior. If we're talking about 528, so it correlates to the solar plexus and the note mi, which comes from the phrase mira gestorum, meaning miracle in Latin. 528 is known as the miracle tone, which brings about extraordinary changes. It is the frequency of all botanical life on Earth. It is the frequency of love. In fact, NASA has announced that 528 hertz is the frequency of the sun, which explains the obvious connection this tone has to the solar plexus. So each frequency is responsible for different things, and it's just another scale that corresponds to different things. So if the chakra, the harmonic spectrum, that 256, if that doesn't resonate with you, then there's the cosmic octave, which actually keys into the planets of each of our chakras. And those are all different frequencies. And then you have the solfeggio frequencies, which are ancient frequencies, which key into the chakras. So it's a never ending cycle of how all of these frequencies have been around forever, and they all play in and help with our energy centers of our body, which I find to be pretty freaking cool.
So how do you know that you're at 396 or 417, or how do you get there?
Well, I think you do things like sound healing, and you do things like meditation, and you do things like all of that. I think I don't know if there's a way to.
How do I create 432? How do I create 528?
Well, tuning forks are great ways to produce that frequency. I would imagine that you could buy crystal bowls that are tuned to certain frequencies. I know that they have crystal singing bowls that are tuned to 432 hertz, that musical scale, and 440 hertz. But I'm not sure that they have actual bowls that are, but you could probably find, I think tuning forks is the best way. But I also think that you can probably find other musical instruments that are tuned to those frequencies. I would imagine that you can find flutes that are tuned to those frequencies. You could probably find, again, the tuning forks. You could probably find maybe even crystal pyramids. So there's probably certain instruments that I know you can really break down to the certain frequency. So I would say, anything like that, if there's a frequency that you really, because I know when I'm looking at flutes, they're in all sorts of different frequencies. So are tuning forks, there are drums in certain frequencies, there are different chimes in certain frequencies. So I would say that it would be just picking and choosing what instruments. I think for me, tuning forks is just the easiest for that. They're the least expensive. I think they're the easiest to use. I think they're the easiest to transport as far as getting into specific frequencies, because even with the Himalayan bowls, the frequencies are going to be all over the place, right? Because they're not true toned. I think the only way that you're really going to get those specific frequencies all the time is going to be with those true toned instruments, right? So that's crystal singing bowls, flutes, and tuning forks. But I would imagine that on computers and things, there's tone generators, right? So you could probably, if you're in a room and you have a client on your table, if you have speakers and things, you could probably tone generate that frequency and just bounce it around the room. I think people do that all the time, right? So I think you could even do that if you had the capability. You're an engineer, right? So you could probably do all sorts of cool stuff with frequency and sound and speakers and, all sorts of neat stuff. Yeah. So I think it's just getting it out there into the world, however you think you can generate that. And I would imagine you have all sorts of cool stuff. Violins. I mean, yeah. The world's our oyster, Ruben. You're going to hear me say that a lot, but it is however you think you can get the frequency out there, do it. Just don't blast anybody's eardrums out with your tones. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you haven't gone over that section, I also go through that in that chakra section, I also go through like the harmonic spectrum set that we use to train with and kind of what those do. Like 256 hertz is the element of fire. It's associated with the adrenal glands. It affects the elimination of the body. You can charge the auric field. You can burn out. It's said to burn out cancer in the body. It can warm cold areas of the body. Foot, leg, knee, and ankle problems are helped with 256 hertz. It can help with poor circulation. It can help with eating disorders. It can help with hemorrhoids. It can help with sciatic. So I kind of list in there what each of those frequencies is really good for as well. I tried to give you guys kind of a well-rounded and then within that, I also put in that cosmic frequencies. I put those in there now as well, because the cosmic frequencies are something that that are kind of for us woo-woo healers out there in the world, I kind of like to know to use things that are maybe keyed into the planets of my chakras. So that cosmic octave is just another set of frequencies. So, you know, for that, the frequencies have been created to connect to our cosmic multidimensional selves, which are eternal, extremely subtle, and are accessible through gateways, ladders, layers, and multidimensional levels of energy. So these frequencies are, you know, a lot different than any of the other frequencies that we're talking about. So I give you kind of that information in that section as well. I also talk about the 432 hertz grid and all of that. So if you want to deep dive more into those frequencies in that section on the portal, you know, I kind of give you all of that information in there because it all kind of keys into those chakras. All right. Well, all right, everyone. Thanks for joining me today, letting me talk about weird stuff like the vagus nerve. Ruben, I will get you out a copy of last week's information, and I will also send you this week's information. Nick and Alex, you guys should have gotten those in your emails last night. If you didn't, let me know. And next week, I'm going to be talking about sound healing for trauma and PTSD. And again, it's going to kind of play into this vagus nerve. It all rolls in together, but really talking about how we should approach that and what that kind of looks like for everybody. So tune into my class next week if you feel like listening on that. We're going to start putting more things on the portal, the Learn World. So these videos, I believe coming next week, are going to all start being integrated into the portal. So if there's ever a class that you want to go back and rewatch, everything will be accessible through that portal now. So you can go back through and listen to this discussion or listen to last week's or listen to Bill's, whatever. So we're really starting to integrate everything into that portal. So that's going to be a really good resource. And we really want to start all of us connecting on that portal now and having discussions and all of that. So stay tuned with the portal. We're going to be sending out lots of things, but I believe Sherry will be sending you a copy of this recording, but you know, moving forward, you can always access them right through the portal. Okay.
You got it.
All right.
Thank
Everybody
you.
have a good day. We'll see everybody soon.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.